Welcome to the ThinkData Podcast, and today's guest is Mike Choi. He is the co-founder of Koah Labs. Mike is a former software engineer, and he's worked for, a lot of the big folk, Google, Apple, and Twitter. But back in August 2024, he co-founded Koah Labs. And they're a really interesting business because they're a startup that's helping AI apps earn revenue by placing really simple, relevant ads directly inside the chat experience. Obviously, as alluded to, Mike, you've got a wealth of experience, obviously, as a software engineer, but I suppose going from a hands-on coder, intern at Google, working at all the big guys, then launching your own company, what led you to have that moment where you saw an opportunity and decided to find Koah?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, Alex. Glad to be
Pleasure.
here.
It's good to have you on.
Yeah. I think this might be like a little story time, but you say I've been working at all those big companies, and I think ever since I had my first laptop, I was a builder. So I made a lot of apps, and I think the first app that I remember creating was actually back in high school or secondary school, as they might say in the UK, right?
Yeah, that's it.
And it was like a card game that I kind of saw from a late night Jimmy Fallon TV show,
Okay.
where it's a very silly game, but essentially what you do is you play with one person, and then you get a random card with a random word on it. And your job is to sneak that word into the conversation without having it, being detected, essentially. So at the end of the conversation, the other person's supposed to guess, yeah, the secret word was mayonnaise, right? And then, it's like a yes or no. And then if you don't guess it, or if you guess it, you get a point, blah, 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 right?
Okay.
So that was my first ever app. I put it on the App Store. It was called Word Sneak, and it got a couple of downloads. And high school me was thinking, oh, is there a way to make money off of this?
Of course.
Right? And so, of course, as you would.
Yeah.
And so I discovered this thing called AdMob. And for those who've played Flappy Bird back in like 2010 or 2011, you'll know that AdMob basically powers those like 300 by 50 banner ads that get displayed in the bottom of apps, and developers get paid for it depending on the number of eyeballs or number of interactions they've been able to drive. And so I was like, okay, let's give it a shot. And then I implemented SDK using Stack Overflow for my guidance at the time because there's no AI, right? And over a week, I think I made like $20, which was a huge amount of money for me at the time.
Yeah.
And so I got that money, went to Starbucks and bought myself a Frappuccino. And I think that kind of unlocked
no
a bit
change.
That's right, exactly. It's like keep the change, right? I felt like the richest man in the world, right? And I think that essentially unlocked like a bit of like it was like an aha moment for little Mike. And I think that carried on when I started building apps as a bootstrap founder back like 2 years ago. And that's when I first left Twitter to start trying my own things. And I made a bunch of different consumer apps with my co-founder, and we made I think about 1 to 2 consumer apps per month for about a span of an entire year.
Wow.
And we were, that was one of our strengths. Like we were really good builders, and we're really good at building things fast to really validate or invalidate ideas. But the problem that we kept running into was, yeah, you could build it, you can get some distribution, but it's really hard to monetize these apps, right? A lot of folks kind of resort to subscriptions and, experimenting with paywalls and experimenting with pay schemas or subscription schemas to kind of, try to maximize all the folks that download your app somehow and then tries the try free trial for 1 week and hope that they forget to cancel their subscription and all that, right?
Yeah, fair.
And we're like, there has to be a better way. And at the time, we were making a lot of apps using LLMs, and the idea of putting banner ads, a technology that was made in the early 2000s, into an insanely powerful app with a very novel UX paradigm just didn't make too much sense to me. And so at the time, we actually put the idea into our backlog of many ideas because frankly, back in like 2023, just didn't feel like LLMs were ready enough for productionizing. And so we put it in the backlog, but GPT-4, GPT-4, 4.0, these models came out and people started getting more serious about the productionizing of LLMs. And we're like, I think the timing is right. and started selling customers and without a product, as most startups in the valley would do. And the demand was crazy, right? Every single consumer founder we talked to, big and small, were like, yeah, we're bleeding money. We need to figure out a way to make money. They were excited what we were building, and so that kind of gave us the conviction to go off and start the business.
That's interesting, and I'm fascinated to you talk about kind of founder Mike, young Mike, who obviously it were building
Mm-hmm.
these apps, at a younger age, but
Mm-hmm.
becoming from an engineering standpoint to then being a co-founder is a completely different transition. How do you manage that transition? As you said, kind of building products is what you've
Mm-hmm.
learned and educated and trained yourself to do, but then actually running a company, how did that transition feel?
Yeah, great question. I think it's been a very hard process. I think I'm still learning it. I think when I first started, the founder process or the journey, I was probably like a lot of other people where I was, reading the blogs, reading the books, watching the YouTube videos about how to be a founder, watching those Steve Jobs clips and going, yeah, like I have some of that in me, I could do that.
Yeah.
But then I think really what you need to do is just kind of do it, just make all the mistakes and try to solve the problem you're, using your own brain and kind of think,
Mm.
oh, I think this is the type of founder I am, or I think this is the type of company I want to build, and then kind of making intentional choices that way. But yeah, like I made all the mistakes I think you could make, that people usually write about, such as, don't build before you have customers, or or don't do XYZ before you meet all these prereqs. And I think as a builder and an engineer, it's very easy to kind of trick yourself into saying, no, yeah, I think I did enough research. I interviewed enough customers. Therefore, I should just start building, right?
Yeah.
So definitely fell into that trap multiple times. But now I think Koa is at a stage of business where we're pretty clear in terms of what we need to build and
Mm.
what kind of problems we need to solve. And now it's just more so, okay, there's a lot happening, with like even the OpenAI ads announcement that happened last week, and the timeline and velocity of the industry is like a lot faster than we thought it would be.
Mm.
And so it's like, how do we adopt, and how do we make sure that we stay as the voice of the industry, and kind of like, the thought leaders and all those kind of things. And so I think that boils down to how good are we at executing, but also how good are we, in terms of the people aspect of things, right? Like how do we make sure that as the company grows, communication channels and the way we build, the way we work as a company grows along with it.
Yeah, it probably was the sign of any good business in early stage startups is the ability to wear all those kind of multiple hats, isn't it?
That's
You're
right.
straddling commercial, sales, tech. How do you and your co-founder split that function? Because you said earlier you both are builders, you both
Yeah.
learned by building, and you could ship fast. You were very good at that. But how
Yeah.
do you then decide, well, you need to be focusing more on this and I need to be
Yeah.
focusing more on that?
Yeah. Good question. So, so I have two fellow
Yep.
co-founders. One, his name is Herrick. He's the CTO. And
Okay.
then the other is Nick. He's the CEO, and I'm the CPO.
Okay. On the product side. Fine.
That's right. That's right. So Herrick and I are both technical co-founders, and Nick is non-technical actually. But Nick used to work at South Park Commons, the incubator that we kind of got spun out of. His super strength is strategy, operations, and fundraising and
Okay.
hiring. And so his role in the company is, well, hiring best talent in the world, which I think we've managed to do. As biased I might be, I think we have managed to really recruit and build a very, very strong team from a technical standpoint. And we have some exciting news that we'll announce in a couple of weeks as well in terms of other stuff. But yeah, and that's that. And then Herrick is one of the best builders that I've come across during my stint as a software engineer. And so he basically leads the company in terms of, what kind of technical decisions are we making? What kind of infra decisions are we making? We have 100 and 200 things that we need to build, but
Mm.
by cooperating with me and with other teammates, what is the thing that we should build? And so on and so forth, right? And kind of setting the engineering culture that allows engineers to thrive and be successful. right?
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
such a really valid point. It's funny to talk about the talent piece because so many organizations, so many startups get that piece so wrong.
Hmm.
But why do you think, or what do you think you've got that has made these really talented folk want to join? Because ultimately,
Yeah,
they're joining an idea, they're joining a business that has some momentum, but ultimately, there's so many startups out there, isn't there? Which obviously they've got their
that's
pick
right.
of so many. But what is it specific about you guys?
Mm. I think there are a couple things. One is that we are solving a very, very, very massive problem with a very big market cap.
Yeah,
And I think it's a very exciting and challenging problem to solve. And I
yeah,
think if you decide to solve a hard problem, you naturally attract great people,
curious folk,
right?
right? Yeah,
Curious folks. And secondly, I think we were able to attract great talent because, well, frankly, all of our, we hired a lot of our friends,
okay,
and frankly, I think they're my friends, and I love them to death because they're not only great human beings but also really, really good at their job. They excel not only in like a people perspective, in a social perspective, but also in their professional domains. And so, hiring our friends has been a massive blessing for us because I get to build great company and explore new professional challenges by learning how to become a founder with an engineering background, but also really just enjoying my time and just sharing a bit of life with my friends too. So I think
yeah.
that's been great.
I like this, a classic kind of entrepreneurial journey. And they said the best founders are the ones that can attract those closest to them to join the journey, right? And actually, they still obviously got to be good and deliver, but
Yeah,
ultimately, it's the loyalty it breeds
that's right.
it's no surprise you had that growth. I'm really keen to talk about user experience and
Hmm.
as a user of apps myself, what does drive me mad after a while is, and I've got children, and when they're on their apps and they're getting peppered with
Hmm.
adverts, and it's like
Hmm.
I'm not sure where to press, and it's after a while I end up
Yeah,
lose interest
yeah,
in that whole product because it's just annoying me how many messages. How you touched something earlier about 2023, you thought LLMs, it wasn't quite ready for what you were proposing. What's changed now, and how are you ensuring that the product you're delivering has the best possible user experience whilst at the same time getting people to click?
yeah. That's a good question. Well, I'll cover the first bit first about the model. I think the industry has kind of matured over the last 2-ish years where, the cadence of these models being released has kind of stabilized, and
Mm,
the way people and the developers have been using these models to create novel experiences are starting to converge a little bit. Obviously there's some companies that are doing stuff that no one's thought about and feels very novel to this day, but some of the interfaces have kind of almost converged, the obvious chat-like interface, and maybe like a card comes in from here and add a bit of carousel there, right?
yeah.
And so we found that to be like an easy entry point for adverts. And in order to, the second question about how do we make sure that the users don't get fatigued and or get annoyed or bounce from the app is I would say a multi-pronged approach. One is just experimentation.
Mm,
We experiment loads here at Koah Labs, and I think while we experiment, we keep track of user active minutes or like MDAO and all those kind of things to make sure that, hey, we just launched this experiment, the CTR did go up, but well, actually the MDAO went down, right? What happened? So I think it's a lot on experimentation and really figuring out what works and what doesn't. And ads is interesting because there's a lot of things that we tried over the last 2 years that if you kind of look at it from a distance, you'd be like, oh, that shouldn't work, right? But then we actually ended up running it, and a lot of the things are very counterintuitive
mm,
in the ads world. And so if you just come into it with like a regular product sense, having built mobile apps, that product sense might not necessarily translate to ads products because, I still don't have an answer as to
yeah.
why. If I did, I would, have the right answer for every single experimentation that we run, but I still get them wrong sometimes. And so
Mm,
it all boils down to just run it and run the experimentation. And can you make sure you can, measure the impacts? But the core philosophy that we always try to abide to is relevancy. And are we giving the user any value with this ad? Is it not just like an annoying banner ad that is just trying to grab user attention
yeah.
for no reason, right? And we believe that if we're able to deliver on those two, it will add value and delight to the experience.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I know you touched on this earlier. I think going from that engineer, technical person who can ship products really well to then obviously creating a business is obviously a fully fledged is a step in a new world. But talk about your go-to-market strategy. So in terms of kind of getting people, talking app builders, advertisers, everyone on board with this, not so much a new concept, because you said it, obviously it's been around for a while, but how it's integrating with LLMs and AI specifically. What's been the hardest challenge of kind of getting that message out, then subsequently getting the revenue in?
Yeah. I think, okay, so we are a marketplace. And so one side of the marketplace is the app builders or the publishers, as you would like to say. And then the other side is the advertisers. What we found is advertisers have been very easy to talk to because, if you're a marketer and, everyone in the company is saying, what are we doing out of AI? You need an answer. And so it can be AEO or GEO, whatever you like to call it. Being like the organic or the visibility or the analytics part of what are we doing about AI? But then Koah kind of slots into the what are we doing about the paid marketing aspect of AI ads, right? Or AI, right?
Yeah.
And right now there's not really a solution other than, us and some of the competitors, and I guess now OpenAI doing ads in ChatGPT, right? And so it's been talking to and interacting with advertisers. It's been a very, very straightforward conversation, I would like to say. Our value prop is very clear. And on top of, hey, you get to guarantee presence in AI, we also have various product offerings that allows advertisers to kind of understand their current visibility in AI as well, kind of like the GEO aspect of things. And so we've been able to provide 3 things that advertisers care about, which are scale, learnings, and performance. Although we are working on the performance bit. I think no one's kind of figured out performance marketing in AI ads yet.
Fair enough.
In the publisher perspective, I think, having been a builder myself, I would say that there are 2 camps. One is one's basically companies that are not ready for ads yet, and that is due to lack of PMF or lack of scale or lack of prioritization, or they're just focusing on other things like actually building the core product instead of being worried about how to make money. And the second camp might be, okay, like we have enough eyeballs, we know this works, we have some subscription revenue, but we're also not being able to monetize 90% of the free users that are on the platforms. How do we actually go and monetize that? And there, I guess it would split into 2 other groups, which is one, I will never have ads taint my beautiful app. And the second thing is, I understand that this is the kind of the way the internet works. If we're able to make money via ads, and if the ads look great, if the ads look beautiful while being performant, I am game. That is the cohort that we tend to work best with.
Interesting. Yeah, so it goes back to your experimentation piece. It's trial error. It's having these conversations. It's giving those good accounts of the benefits, but obviously just appreciating it's not going to be for everyone, right? It's going to be some people are fully in the, I'm open to this, whereas the others are like, I don't want to ruin this kind of experience and just have it clean. That's interesting. And it's not something we've discussed previously, but how do you and founders keep focused on that kind of North Star when obviously every kind of 5 minutes you got OpenAI releasing another bit of news? I work with a lot of health tech founders, and obviously they've come out and said they're going to be going big in health tech. So how do you keep on that North Star without always worrying about the next new version or new feature that's coming from OpenAI?
Yeah. I think this is something that I reflected on during the winter break or the holidays, I guess, and something that we started the year wanting to be very intentional about. And so how do we stay focused, right? And I think that's easier said than done, but some of the ways that we've tried to do this are, one, we have a weekly company sync, and at the top of the Notion doc, there is our very, very simple goal for the entire week or for the quarter, let's say. And for now, our focus is making advertisers happy. That's a very high, lofty North Star. But then if you actually want to dive into it, it links to a doc that says, what does that mean? What are the success criteria? But I think just having something as simple as a bolded sentence at the top of every single meeting or weekly alignment meeting saying, hey, remember what our goal is? This is our goal, by the way, is
Yeah.
very helpful. And the second thing that we've been trying recently has been doing what I guess, the designers like to call design sprints. And for those who are not familiar with what a design sprint is, it's basically a week-long sprint where people with different abilities at the company, along with the person that can make a decision, get along in a room, cancel all the meetings and everything that doesn't matter to what they're trying to accomplish for the week, and then just trying to solve that from Monday to Friday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and then ending the week with a prototype. And so the whole perspective of the sprint is, I don't care about anything else. Just let's all get into this room, cancel all the meetings. Let's figure out this one problem and come up with a solution to it. And so that's been an extreme way to kind of practice focus. And it's been interesting to see how practices like that kind of bleeds into the company culture, right? And so those are the two main ways. But I'm still a student, so open to years on other ways we can manifest this at the company too.
I like your approach. It's interesting speaking to someone in terms of where you are in your journey, your career, the way you're running the engineering org and the business it does play to engineers' strengths and kind of ambitions, right? They want to be spinning up fast. They want to be reiterating. They want to do experimentation. They want to be having fun and playing, because ultimately as an engineer, or if you're a designer, whatever it ends up being, you got into tech because of that. You can go and sit in a siloed engineering team. And I know you were part of one of those. Where you might be working on a small, tiny, incremental feature, but you're running the business in a way of collaboration. Everyone's involved. Was that purpose, or is that just kind of naturally how you see yourself business running?
No, I think this was very intentional, right? We hired, our teammates are best in the world at what they do, and I think because of that, we want them to kind of flex their muscles, right? And what that means is, hey, you think you have an idea that can move the business forward? It's all on you. The agency is fully on that person to go say, hey, I want to build this thing. I need your help. Let's bang this out in 2 weeks. And then my job then is, hey, can you actually do that in a week? or hey, what do you think about this other thing? And then, and we debate about prioritization. We debate about scope creep and all those kind of things. But I think, the culture of extreme ownership and extreme agency has been a very intentional choice on our end.
No, I like it. And it's no surprise you've attracted those best in class, because that's ultimately what they'll be doing, right? They don't want to be stuck on calls all day. They want to be actually going and doing and building stuff.
That's right.
You're really well positioned to see kind of where this market could go. But if we look at generative AI and the associated products, AI products, how is this going to impact advertising, and whether it's, on your point, the advertisers, the developers, what are we going to start to see change over the next 2 to 3 years, or even sooner?
Yeah, I think advertisers and marketers will have to really rethink what their role will look like in 2 years. And I say that not in terms of like, AI will kill or remove all marketing or advertising jobs, but also more so, what are the new mechanics and what are the new levers that will be given to marketers and advertisers when it comes to interacting with consumers, right? And so what I mean by that is, hey, in the past, for example, if you're trying to do Google ads or meta ads, you might do lookalike audiences or keywords, right? And then provide Facebook and Google with some pre-written copy, pre-generated images, and so on and so forth. But we believe that in the future, or or this year more so, is that, hey, we don't think that the best copy or the best line of advert should be a static one, or more so, like a list of 20 different copies your expert copywriter in-house, painstakingly wrote over the last 2 months. It's more so that, hey, give us the vibe of the company and the product that you're trying to sell. Why is it valuable to the user? Why should they care about it? And now with AI, we can kind of custom tailor each message to each individual user. And we've seen that is a very powerful thing, right? That's like the holy grail of marketing, right? Where you, Alex, and me are basically shown different adverts at all times, because different parts of our brain get lit up by seeing different things, right? And
Yeah.
so how will they interact with that? And what does pricing even look like, right? In the past, it was based on eyeballs and clicks and conversions, but I think a lot of, I think ChatGPT saw this, I think Perplexity saw this, and we're seeing this too. It's like right now we think the user behavior to get recommended a product and immediately purchase it is not there yet,
No.
right?
No.
So what I mean is like, yeah, if I want to buy a shoe, I'll go to, for example, if I want to buy an Adidas shoe, I'll go to Google, go to adidas.com, find a coupon, and then purchase from Adidas versus going to ChatGPT and going, I would like some Adidas shoes, and then doing a full catalog browsing from ChatGPT, right?
Yeah.
And so what does that mean in terms of performance advertising? And so there'll be a lot of things that change over the next few years, and we are hoping to kind of basically lead the charge, right? Write the rules. Yeah.
No, I love that. And it's that user behavior and the buying pattern, isn't it? Because we're so intrinsically used to doing something one way, and actually only education is going to mean we change those buying behaviors. But obviously, what I've seen, you probably see this yourself, the adoption of those new behaviors is accelerating at such a rate because of AI. And we're kind of in that position where you're kind of on the train or left behind right now. So it sounds like you guys are really, really tapping into that. And just so we can close things off, what can people expect to see from you guys? I'm guessing everyone can take a look at Koah after this interview, but what kind of products, initiatives have you got coming out over the next coming months?
Yeah. Well, the first thing that we'll probably launch within the next couple of weeks is a rebrand.
Oh, nice. Exciting.
I've been doing a lot of designing recently with one of my friends is the head of design at Koah, and we're really excited about the new brand that we'll launch in mid-February, along with a very exciting announcement from the company side. But also from the product perspective, I think I mentioned a little bit about serving the learning needs and learning requirements from advertisers. And so we'll have a feature that basically allows the user to say, oh, it seems like 20% of the people on Koah are talking about education, for example, or like help with homework. And our platform kind of allows the user to dig into it. So it's like, okay, 20% is education. And once you click into it and you're like, oh, it seems like 10% is algebra. And, oh, it seems like 10% is about this. And what's really cool with this feature is that, okay, now you found something that you care about, a topic that you care about. Now you can just click a button and basically guarantee your brand or your product's visibility within those queries, right? So it's kind of going from discovery analysis all the way down funnel into just getting your product in front of users' eyeballs. And I think that'll be very powerful. And so we're really, really excited about that feature.
Awesome. Well, look, I've really enjoyed it. I'm sure people listening to here are going to be fascinated. It's a space that people probably don't necessarily know exists, but obviously if they go on to apps or anything, they'll very quickly realize why it exists. And actually, I know Koah is leading the charge there. So yeah, Mike, great to have you on this morning. It's been loads of fun and super interesting. I'll make sure we make a lot of noise when we launch.
Thank you, Alex. Pleasure.
Thanks very much.